It is August, albums of the month I've missed. I'm ready to go into it. I hope you are. And let's see what we've got this month that I have not been able to cover yet. I'm going to start this one talking about the new We Came as Romans, All Is Beautiful, Because We're Doomed record. I plan to do this one as a separate review, but with a lot of stuff that I have to cover on Friday, I haven't quite had the time for it, so just going to put a brief little recap of what I was going to try and say on that. Is fine. I feel like the biggest issue I have with it as a record is it just does everything Darkbloom did, and it doesn't really push the kind of best sound they had, which was before Kyle passed away. I'm not saying the lead singer's bad, I think he's still a good fit to the band, but since they kind of exploded in popularity with Darkbloom, this has just kind of been a continuation of that sound, and it's just not really done anything original, unique, or anything that great. I don't think there's really much standout moments on this record. It's just kind of a very bland meh record, so I'm gonna have to say it's a perfect 2.5 out of 5. It really doesn't do much, but it's not that bad. Got a new record by Broken by the Scream, their 4th album, Solar Strain. So Broken by the Scream, a Japanese heavy metal band, or yeah, just a kind of a little bit of kawaii metal, but not really the same vein as baby metal. Honestly, the difference between baby metal and this band is there's a lot of screaming. I mean, if your name is Broken by the Scream and you don't do any screaming, then what's the point, right? So Solar Strain, in my opinion, from what I've listened to with every record of the band, probably offers the most consistent, the most fun, and just the most complete energy and just performance I've heard from this band. They've had some good stuff in the past, to say the least. That's why I got into them, with Noisy Night Fever and An Alien's Portrait are 2 albums I definitely think are pretty nice, but this is kind of the peak they've got to. Now, I did have my doubts. The fact that I saw there was a 14.5-minute song did have me questioning a bit, but frankly, I think it's a nice kind of send-off. I think Suyoko no Nazca, the way this one works amazingly is that you just kind of get the classic sound of just pure unclean mayhem. You get some breakdowns, you get some over-the-top energy from the band, and it's nice to just see lead singers just screaming their head off on this. But as you kind of get towards the end, you kind of get this nice up-feeling moment it plays with, something that could be in Super Mario Galaxy, that it just shines straight away into what feels like Kirby music. And I'm not saying that's bad. I personally think Nintendo's always got a good key for noise, and the Kirby sound is really interesting. That it just kind of blasts you with one final barrage of aggression, and I think that's kind of the fun variety you get on this record. Tracks like Wonderful World, Dying Message, they can have a punchy chorus, but they're going to hit hard and just be absolutely insane with the aggression here. An amazing start with Andromeda as well. I honestly think this is an absolute great example how you can improve on what they've kind of been working up to at this point. It's the most clear-cut, most just probably the strongest line of tracks we've had from them. So yeah, give this one a 3.5 out of 5. I've talked about it too much, so let's go into the next one. I'm going to get a lot of flack for this one. I'm not that big on the new Wolf Alice, the clearing. I was going to do a separate review for either Wolf Alice or We Came as Romans. Fun fact, did neither. But yeah, honestly, I just find the Wolf Alice album to be the worst of the 4 they've done. When it comes to the whole kind of sound that they go for the second half, I feel like it's a big downgrade and a step back from Blue Weekend, which I felt kind of incorporated the more poppy indie lo-fi shoegaze sound a bit nicer than what we had here. This one kind of changes to a bit of a different approach, and while there is some joy to be had with tracks like Bloom Baby Bloom, and even like I'd just say the first few tracks are actually pretty decent, the album kind of takes a stumble down until we get kind of towards the end, where a few songs do luckily pick it back up. But I think just with the overall record alone, I just found a lot of it just to kind of feel a bit sluggish, and I really couldn't get into this one, unfortunately. I know it's I know Wolf Alice has had quite an amazing streak of beloved albums, but yeah, I'm just not really into this one, unfortunately. I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5. Black Keys return with another album, No Rain, No Flowers. I talked about Ohio Players, and I'm happy that this is kind of a step up from that. It's more consistent, I feel like the writing just works better, and it kind of brings in an appeal for classic Black Keys fans, but yeah, I don't think it's much of an improvement either. While I think like they have surpassed what they've done, I don't think they still quite climbed the mountain to bring in freshing new ideas that will bring in old fans and new fans back to the table. This is just kind of something I feel like casual fans could listen to, and I think that's the appeal for it. But yeah, honestly, it's decent. I'll give it a 2.5 out of 5. I think it's not too shabby. The new Gnosis record, GENKNOSIS, was pretty awful in my opinion. It just felt like a very dry, bland experience that doesn't really push anything interesting in what it's trying to go for. The metalcore production just feels very overproduced. The trap metal aspect of this is just really not for me. It kind of reminds me of what a lot of bands are incorporating into theirs, especially when you had Falling in Reverse doing it, and it's just kind of the most I guess one of the more obnoxious flavours that a lot of people hate with modern metal. I think it honestly can work, but the way it sounds here, this wasn't it. Giving this one a 2 out of 5. This is a new band you might have not heard of. They've been going for a few years, but they haven't actually released an album until now. It is Slow Quit, a kind of grungy, shoegazy sort of band with Fusion in Rupture, their first record, and yeah, I must say it's not too bad. I feel like when it comes to this blend of kind of I guess an alt metal, hard rock, grunge. Do you know what? They're not really hard rock or alt metal, but a lot of bands have been dabbling with either metal and shoegaze, or hard rock or shoegaze. I'd say this is probably just a bit more on the grunge side, but yeah, it's kind of a sound that's getting so popular, and so many people are doing it. And when you just see new albums, it's kind of hit or miss if you're going to enjoy it. Personally, I felt like it's in the middle. With the Slow Quit one, it's fine. I don't think it's actually that bad, to be honest. There's some highlights such as Burt Cocaine and Incel Halloween, but I think as a whole the album kind of loses its loses the charm of it once you get past kind of the silly songs. Even some good tracks like Metabolic Riff and Discolor, but as you get to Interlude and onward, it is kind of a bit of a slog, but yeah, it's still decent. I'd recommend checking it out if you're kind of into it. 2.5 out of 5. Here's another band similar to Slow Quit you might have not heard of, but I got to listen to this one, and yeah, this is Centuries of Decay, a monument to Oblivion. So this band is a progressive metal band, also technical death metal. They kind of incorporate the death metal into proggy sound, sort of similar to what Gojira did for a good few of their albums until Magma, I'd say the least. And I've honestly enjoyed bands that kind of play with this. I think the last one I got to properly review and I really enjoyed was the Darth album, The Deceivers, and that one was quite a lot of fun. So Centuries of Decay kind of bringing this kind of new band energy into it is definitely a nice feeling, to say the least. Now, this does have some drawbacks. Being a smaller band, the production definitely is nowhere near as good as it could be. Some of it just sounds a bit off, but for the creativity into the songwriting, the riffs, the drums, you can excuse all that because again it's a small band, they don't have the budget to put into something big, and it still sounds listenable as well, so it's not like it really dampens the quality. But yeah, this is actually a pretty good album. I'd recommend. The vocals are great, the cleans, they occasionally appear in between some of the songs, also nice as well. I think this is the band's second album, with their first being pretty much 8 years before this one came out. So yeah, it's quite nice. Honestly, this album's good. I recommend this one. 3.5 out of 5. Got the new Hives album, for the Hives Forever the Hives. I was going to do a separate review on the Hives, but unfortunately, due to how many stuff I got to talk about here, I was going to be overwhelmed trying to do edit that as well as also edit this, so I'm going to have to briefly talk about it here, I'm afraid. Apologies for that, but the Hives' new album is honestly a big step in the right direction, even more than what the death of Randy Fitzsimmons was. The death of Randy Fitzsimmons was the first album after Lex Hives, which they took quite a long break from writing new material, but eventually we did have a few songs like Good Samaritan and I'm Alive, I think were the two singles, just two random ones. But we actually got some brand new Hives content, 2023 with a whole album, and I think this was generally taking the old aspect, or the kind of the old classic ideas of the Hives, and putting a new formula and spin on it. While I don't think the album quite did the best job of it, this is definitely a more step in the right direction. It feels like classic Hives energy. The writing is just a lot more memorable. I think there's a lot more intricate ideas that makes for a more compelling, overall just beautiful produced kind of classic fun silly rock punky album they've done here. So yeah, the Hives, pretty good. 3.5 out of 5 is what I give this one. Got the new one by the black metal band Panopticon, Laurentian Blue. So I say black metal, whereas this record is folk. Yeah, this album is folk. It's not rock, it's not black metal, it's not metal, it's a folk record. And I feel that's probably the biggest shocker I can tell from having one of the heaviest genres going, one of the darkest, one of the grittiest, probably also one of the more controversial as well, to then kind of go into almost the polar opposite of it. I mean, respect for the band for doing it. I think Panopticon has had some interesting stuff, and they did release a release with kind of some demo stuff, some old tracks, and that's all black metal. The same day as this, but I wanted to cover an actual studio album, and their studio album is this. Yeah, it's alright. I think personally for a folk record it's fine. I personally would have preferred a black metal album from them, but you know what, I think they do a decent take it. The guys' cleans are clearly working for it, and the writing's not half bad. I'm not the biggest fan of folk as it is, so I kind of isn't going to appeal quite to me, but I think in terms of a folk record, yeah, quite surprised. If you like folk, you might like this one. Yeah, give it 2.5 out of 5. We got the new one by Woe Is Me, Daybreak. So this is the third album in the band's discography. They haven't really released that many records because there's been constantly member disputes and a lot of people have left. And this is also the band that had the infamous Tyler Carter, who went on to leave the band to form Issues, a more successful band. And then Tyler Carter had some issues of his own and got into some controversy. But that's pretty much all I've heard about Woe Is Me. They're kind of one of the 2009 starting bands that helped push electroniccore. Wouldn't say pioneer, but definitely one of the earlier ones at least. And yeah, this was a terrible album to come back to. Instead, they kind of wanted to put a more country blend on this, on the kind of this beige metalcore sound that feels very outdated, to say the least. The effects on this just sound awful. It just kind of sounds like they're trying to take aspects of the heavier metalcore, but then putting these over-the-top radio-friendly choruses on it. It feels like they really are trying to set a precedent with how heavy can we make the most bland generic hard rock metalcore can be. Let's put country in there as well. This was, I don't even know what this was, but I did not like it at all. Give it a 2 out of 5. Lord of the Lost, OPVS, NOIR, Volume 1. Yeah, I quite like this one, to be honest. I got to a point where I was wondering if this is really the sound that I could kind of vibe with, and I let it play. I had to give it another listen again to really confirm that, and honestly, it's got a lot of fun to it. The band plays with kind of this industrial metal aesthetic into their sound. They kind of create this symphonic wave as well, even bringing in one of the biggest bands in the genre within Temptation to have a feature on the track Light Can Only Shine in the Darkness, which is a pretty fun song in general, but I feel like the best material is the non-single stuff. Moonstruck, Damage, The Sadness and Everything, yeah, and even Dreams and Never Alone. Hell, even Bizarre, which I think might have been a single, don't quote me on that, but yeah, there's a lot of good stuff on here, and from what I heard originally, I wasn't that big on it, so don't know what they did here, but I generally feel like their sound kind of works. It just creates this very fun, just very vibrant atmosphere, and I love the kind of gothic, kind of dark and sound they have into it as well. If Volume 1's like this, if we're getting a Volume 2, I'm curious to see how this one continues on, so yeah, really enjoyed this one, 3.5 out of 5. It's unfortunate, I gotta say, the new Halestorm Everest album is a bit of a mixed bag. I feel like you do get a strong start, but then as you get towards the end, it doesn't give you the best material from the band, but I still gotta respect Halestorm for still having a strong sound when they do make the songs work. Some great songs on here like Fallen Star, which is an incredible way to start the record off. Some good tracks like Darkness Always Wins and Rain Your Blood on Me as well have been good. Even Shiver as well, but I find when it gets to the second half, I don't think the vocals are all disappointing. I just find the kind of hooks, the riffs, ideas just don't really feel as just a little bit more jarring than they do with the earliest on the record stuff. But instrumentals, I think throughout most of it, it sounds pretty nice. I just wish it was more memorable in the second half. It's definitely front-loaded record. I'll give it a 2.5 out of 5. Got the new album by Hot Mulligan, The Sound a Body Makes When It's Still. I almost forgot about this one, so I'm happy I got to put it on the list because I definitely planned on reviewing it. And yeah, honestly, if you like Midwest emo, like emo, a little bit of screamo as well, just take the 3 emos and you'll enjoy this one. I think that's kind of the formula of a standard Hot Mulligan record. Most of the Midwest emo stuff is more the interlude short tracks. They're kind of sparsely placed within this record, and then you kind of get the more hectic, louder, heavier stuff throughout the rest of it. It definitely feels like a Hot Mulligan record, but the only thing kind of draws it back is the writing isn't quite as punchy. I feel like there is some good riffs, some good vocal energy, but it doesn't really reel you in or have as many moments that are that memorable. It just kind of feels like a one long listen with some good ideas in each track, but a lot of them don't quite utilize the whole structure it wants to go into. I applaud it, and I still think it's a good album in concept, but I think for a whole listen it's going to be quite hard to get into it unless you're repeatedly playing specific songs. The best track for me is Island in the Sun. Still, I think the Free Throw feature was a good addition to this record, and easily the most memorable track on the record as well. I'll give it a 3 out of 5 because it is, while it might be their worst album, it's still good. Dinosaur Pile Up, I felt better. Unfortunately, I felt worse listening to this. I can't really get into the lead singer's vocals here. I think that's kind of the only real gripe with this. I suppose maybe also some of the lyrics as well, I just find a bit weird, but that's not really that bad in comparison to the voice. I'm not really feeling the vocalist. I feel like when it comes to certain exaggerations and emphasis on words, it becomes quite grating to the ears, and I find there's a lot of songs that could be actually enjoyable had it had a different vocalist, in my opinion. There's a few songs I do like, and I just think it's because the vocals are a bit toned down, but yeah, I'm not really a fan of this, unfortunately. I'm going to have to give it a 2 out of 5. As December falls, Everything's on Fire, But I'm Fine is good. I saw this band support Normandy on the Dopamine tour last year, an album that I would absolutely rate higher than when I put it last year. Yeah, and they were definitely a good performance, to say the least, a good support act. I kind of prefer them to Self-Deception. And even song-wise, I think they just kind of sound stronger than that band does anyway. This kind of just reminds me of, I guess, Halestorm, with a bit more of the early Paramore, maybe even a bit of Marmosets when it comes to female vocals, but they play with the kind of indie hard rock sound, but never really dabble into anything crazy. I feel like it's definitely an album that could go a little bit more vigorous, but I think for what it is, it's still a decent, nice listen. There's a lot of punchy songs, some good hooks, a lot of swearing, but yeah, it's good. 3 out of 5. I'll give it 3. We got the new Nova Twins album, Parasites and Butterflies. I'm not really feeling this one, to be honest. I tried to get into it, but it just kind of reminds me of what we already had with their second record from 4 years ago, 3 years ago rather. And coming back, it just feels like they've took a few years to work on this, but all the songs just sound the same. The formula is kind of going rinse and repeat of this kind of bland beige sound they keep going for. Feels quite corporate in a way, I suppose. I don't know if this is kind of something they're sticking to just to kind of keep the popularity. I mean, their second record was Mercury Award nominated, which is given to a lot of kind of upcoming rising artists that are growing in popularity. Wet Leg really took this one well, and Nova Twins, not saying they're bad, they definitely do have some fun energy. The last album was pretty decent, but I just find nothing on this memorable, and anything that is annoying, such as the electronic aspect to this. There's a lot of annoying electronic moments. The songwriting and vocals just don't really do anything unique or interesting. It's just kind of a slog to go through, and I just personally don't think it's that great, to be honest. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to give this one a 2 out of 5. I did have high expectations because Nova Twins can do some pretty good stuff, but this isn't it. This isn't the best direction or step to go for. The new 1000 Below album is alright. This is Buried in Jade. The thing with 1000 Below is they are definitely making more of a name for themselves. They were very small when I first heard of them, and then I actually got to see them support Normandy for the Dark and Beautiful Secrets tour in 2021. The tour which only UK benefited from, and everywhere else unfortunately got delayed for months. So it was nice that I actually got to see Normandy for the first time, and it was the only concert I was able to see that year, mainly due to the pandemic. But anyway, yeah, 1000 Below, I don't think they have really been doing their best material as of recent. It's interesting that one of the songs on this record is actually produced by Josh Gilbert from Spiritbox. I thought that was quite interesting, but as a whole, it doesn't really do much. It kind of feels like it's missing its identity, because this post-hardcore band, it takes books out of Thornhill, out of a little bit, or not a little bit, a huge amount of Bad Omens as well. Matter of fact, I think half the songs just kind of have this the death of peace of mind sort of sound. Some of it reminds me of like a Villain, especially with the verses. The chorus definitely feels like you can expect it on that record as well. I kind of wish the band had more of their own identity, because the production is pretty nice for what it offers, and there is some good songs here, but I just really wish bands kind of try to do something original instead of doing what they've heard. It does kind of get a bit tiresome, but that's about it pretty much. 2.5 out of 5, it's not bad. Got the new album by In Mourning, The Immortal. So this is a prog death metal band that honestly has been quite consistent. I feel like every release, even if it isn't the most original concept for them, still brings some great ideas, some good energy to it, and I think there's another example of that. I love the whole aesthetic of this record. It just continues on with some great fun energy, fun riffs. Nothing really breathtaking for the band, but it's a formula I still feel like they can squeeze as much as they can, and it still feels interesting because there are some intricate ideas I like about this one. But yeah, I'll give this one a 3.5 out of 5. Finally, we're going to end up talking about the new Ihlo album, Legacy. Holy shit, this is how you do a comeback, and this is one of the examples of how you can make a sophomore album insanely good. Ihlo is a prog metal outfit from the UK. Their 2019 album Union, it is good, and I think it generally has got some cool creative ideas, but I love the way that they embrace even more of their proggy sound. This newer album feels like if you're a Tesseract fan, Porcupine Tree fan, Vola fan, Leprous fan, Haken fan, just kind of squish all of that together, and I feel like this is an album you'll enjoy. It's got loads of long tracks, a lot of them are 8 minutes, and then you get the 10-minute track at the end as well, and it doesn't really take away any of the songs to pad out to a full-length record. A lot of prog metal bands will make less tracks if there's some longer ones, but 10 tracks for an album like this, and there's a lot of long songs, you're going to be eating good, because there's not a moment wasted on this. Every song just plays with synths in just such a really fun, creative way. The vocals are just absolutely top notch. The instrumentation on this is just insanely good. It feels like they improved upon everything their previous album did, and that's not even saying the previous album bad. They just generally took the liberty of having more time, more focus to creating this record, and it actually pays off really well. Without a doubt, one of my favourite albums of the year. Not one song disappoints. I feel like even tracks like Legacy, which most of it kind of is more of a slower start as it slowly builds up and then you just soar through with these synths as it explodes, is awesome. There is literally no reason to not like this if you're a prog metal fan. It is absolutely one of the best produced albums of the year, one of the best albums of the year in fact, and yeah, I'm going to give this one a 4.5 out of 5. It is incredibly good. Yep, this was one long one. There was so many stuff to talk about, almost 20 or over 20 matter of fact. I even had to cut down some I wanted to talk about, just to make sure I could get all the albums I was enticed to review and all the ones that I felt like I wanted to review. So I'm glad it's done. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video.